Hi socialite, and welcome to another interesting tutorial. In today's one, as you already can see on your screen, I'm going to be showing you how to go about the cutting and the sewing of this beautiful dress with sided gathered and ruffled sleeve. Sit right back if this is the one you're interested in as I take you through the journey of getting this done. Here are all the items I'm going to be using for this tutorial, and to get started I'm going to be marking out all the vertical measurements, and when I mean vertical measurements I mean all the measurements from the shoulder downwards. Okay, so to get started I'm going to start with the armhole measurement. Okay, this is the center fold area of the pattern paper. I'm going to be using 7.5 inches for the armhole length, and then the breast point measurement, I have the under bust also marked out, I have the half waist length marked out, and then I'm going to be marking out the blouse length, and lastly I'm going to be using the total length of the pattern paper for the dress length. Okay, because this is 36 inches, so this is enough for the length of the dress because it is short. So I have the other points marked out on the other sides of the pattern paper, and I'm going to be connecting with a straight line horizontally, as you can see me do on the screen. Okay, so after I've gotten all the vertical measurements, I'm going to be marking them out to avoid confusion when I'm drafting. Okay, at this point I have the armhole, the breast point, the under bust, sorry for the error at this point, and then the half waist length, and of course the blouse length. Okay, please take note of this correction at this point, sorry about that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be marking out the shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 15 inches divided by 2, give me 7.5, and then I come down to the armhole length, I have that marked out and I'm connecting with a straight line. And then the next thing I'm going to be marking out the armhole curve, but to do that I'm going to be coming down by 3/4 of an inch, which is the shoulder slant. That's for the shoulder slant. And then from this point I'm going to be getting the midpoint from this 3/4 downwards to the armhole length. I fold my tape rule to get the midpoint, and at that point I'm going to be coming inward like so by half an inch. Okay, so I mark half an inch inward as you can see, and then I'm going to be connecting the point. But at this point, to get where the armhole is going to terminate, I'm going to be dividing the bust measurement by 4, so whatever that gives me I have that marked out. So these are the 3 points of my armhole curve, I mean. So I have that connected, and next I'm going to be marking out the neckline, and for the neckline it is quite wide. I'm going to be using 4 inches for the width of the neckline. Okay, and then for the depth of the neckline it is wide and deep. I'm going to be using 8 inches for that. Okay, so this is the 8 inches depth for the neckline depth, and at that 8 inches I'm going to be using 3.5. okay, remember I used 4 inches at the upper part, so at this point I'm going to be using 3.5 because it is not like a straight neckline all the way down, it is a bit pointed inward. Okay, that's why I'm using 3.5 at the neck depth. So I have those points connected to give me the neckline. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to get the breast distance measurement, and then I divide it by 2. So whatever that gives me from the center point area of the pattern paper, I'm going to be marking that out starting from the breast point. So I'm going to be marking that down all the way downwards to the length of the dress or the pattern paper. Okay, after which I'm going to be having them connected with the straight line all the way from the breast point to the dress length. Okay, so after that, from this breast point I'm going to be connecting upwards to the shoulder area, and to get that I get the distance between the neckline and the shoulder, and then I get the midpoint. Okay, so from that point I'm going to be connecting like so to the breast point, and then I'm going to be marking out the shoulder slant just as you can see me do. I extended it outward because I'm still going to be marking the armhole again. So at the under bust area I'm going to be marking 1 inch between the dot line. So this is 1 inch on the right and 1 inch on the left, and I'm going to be connecting to the breast point using my curve rule as you can see. So I have those 2 points between the dot lines connected to the breast point, and for the connection of the upper part of this point that I have at the under bust, I'm going to be marking out, measuring the distance between the breast point and the under bust. So whatever that gives me, I come from the breast point upwards, I mark that upwards, and that is going to act as the chest line. So these points from the breast point upwards give me 3.5 inches, and at that point I'm going to be marking 0.75 between the dot lines. So this is 0.75 and this is 0.75, and then I'm just going to be connecting with the straight line just just to make that visible. And at this upper shoulder area, I'm going to be marking out the same thing, 0.75 between the dot lines. Okay, so I mark 0.75 on this part as well, and I'm going to be connecting downwards with a straight line to my chest line. So I have those points connected with a straight line, and then from this point I'm going to be connecting downwards to the breast point as well. So I have those points connected. Okay, so after that I'm going to be coming down to the dress length, that's the lower part of the dress, and then I'm going to be marking ½ inch between the dot lines, and then I'm going to be connecting the point all the way from the under bust to the length of the pattern paper, or the total length of the dress. And then coming back to the armhole area, remember this point gave us a total of 1.5 inches, okay, at this point. And then at the armhole I'm going to be marking that out as well. That's why I have this extension at this part. So I mark out that 1.5 inches that I'm going to be cutting out at that upper part of the chest. So I'm reshaping the armhole with an extension of 1.5 inch, and then I'm going to be connecting, and this is going to be acting as the new armhole that I'm going to be using. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to mark out all our body circumference measurement that are divided by 4. And remember that at this armhole area I already divided the bust measurement by 4, so I'm going to be coming down to the next one, which is the under bust round measurement, and I divide the under bust round measurement by 4. And then remember we have our dart allowance here. I also include that, which is 2 inches. At the half waist length I divide the waist measurement by 4, and then I impute our dart allowance. And then coming down to the blouse length, I'm going to be dividing the hip measurement by 4, and also I measure the dart allowance, and then I also add that. Okay, so after that I'm going to be connecting the points all the way from the armhole down to the hip area. So this is how the connection or the shaping of the side of the pattern paper or the dress goes. Please pay attention to what I'm going to be explaining at this point. So from this hip area, there's something that's going to happen here. So if you want to have your gathered, that's the gathered part of the dress, you want to just cut your fabric as long as you want it, or as wide as you want it, and just attach, that is fine. But if you want to use a slash and spread method for that gathered area, I'm going to be showing you what to do. Okay, so if you want to use a slash and spread method, that means you are going to be extending the side of the dress downwards like so, depending on how wide you want that to be. So I'm just going to be making this place that is deep. I'm just going to be reshaping that. So at that part I'm going to be showing you what to do to that side later. So remember, we are not done with the front part of the dress yet. We still have something to do at the upper part. So I'm just going to be dividing the paper into two so that I can draft out the back pattern of the dress. So for the drafting of the back pattern, I had to add an extra pattern paper so that it can accommodate the width of the back. So I'm just going to be extending all my vertical measurements horizontally, just like so. And the first thing to do at the back pattern drafting is to mark out the zipper allowance. So this is the 1.5 inches zipper allowance, and I have that marked out all the way down, and then I have the points connected together. So like I said, this is our zipper allowance. And the next thing, I'm going to be marking out the shoulder divided by 2. We already have that done at the front. Okay, so I'm not going to be adding this 1.5 inches that I added to the front. I'm just going to be dividing the exact shoulder measurement divided by 2. So at the armhole length I do the same thing, and then I connect with a straight line. And at this point I come down by 3/4 inch for the shoulder slant, and then I'm going to be connecting. But before that, I'm dividing the bust measurement by 4, and I have that. And from this point I just get the midpoint of the rest of the length of the armhole, which is this. And from that point I'm just going to be curving my armhole, but like I said, I'm not going to be taking any point inward. I just connect like so. And now it's time for the neckline. So for the width of the neckline, we used 4 inches at the front, and so we mark the same thing. So for the depth of the neckline at the back, it's your choice. If you want it low just like the front, then it's your choice, but I do not want that. So I'm going to be using 2 inches for the depth of the neckline at the back. So I just mark the 2 inches at this zipper allowance, and then I'm going to be connecting to the width of the neckline. I tried using my cowl, but it's not giving me what I want, so I had to use my free hand. After which I had the shoulder slant also connected. I don't remember if I had mentioned earlier that I'm not done with the upper part of the front yet. I'm still coming back to this side of the front. Okay, but for now let's continue with the back. Okay, so for the back, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to get the breast distance measurement. I divide that by 2. Just that's for the dart line, and I mark those points, and then I have those points connected all the way to the up like so. Before we proceed with the dart drafting of the back, let's come back to the half waist length. We know that the half waist length of the front is usually longer well than the back with some inches, and for this part it's longer by 1.5 inches. So at this breast point area I come down by 1.5 inches, and then I'm going to be connecting to the breast point to give me the breast dart like so. So this is the difference between the half waist length of the back and the front. And then at this half waist length of the front that we marked initially, I'm going to be coming upward by 1.5 inches that we've already taken out from the front. So this is 1.5 inches upward, and then I connect with a straight line like so. So this is also the 1.5 inches that we took out from the front. So for the back, this point is going to be our half waist length of the back. Okay, so just take note of that. And then at this dart line, like I said, I'm going to be coming back to the dart drafting. I mark half inch between the dart lines at this point, and I also come down to this point and I mark half inch between the dart lines, and I'm going to be connecting the points upwards and then downwards as well. So I connect upwards with a pointed edge like so to the up, and at the lower part, I'm going to mark the dart at the lower part. I come down by 4 inches because that's where the dart is going to terminate, and I connect with a pointed line like so as well. So at this point, I'm going to be dividing the bust measurement by 4, which I already have at the armhole. So I come down to the under bust round, I divide by 4, and then remember we have our dart allowance here. I also have that added to this side. Okay, so I come down to the half waist, to the other part of the half waist length, I divide by 4 as well, and then I mark the dart allowance, and then I come down to the hip area, I divide the hip by 4, and then I have the point connected from the armhole down to the hip area, just as you can see. So at this point, like I said when I was marking out the front, this point, it's either you stop all your markings at this point, but if you want to use a splash and spread method, I already told you I'm going to be showing you how to go about that. So at this point, because I'm going to be showing you the slash and spread method, I'm going to be extending this just like I did to the front. Okay, earlier I said I'm going to be coming back to this part of the pattern paper, but before we do that, I'm going to be slitting or dividing the front from the back. So I separate the front from the back, and for the breast dart, I'm going to be folding it like so before we proceed. So I just hold it down with the tape, and then for this side, you can see that this shaping here is already distorted, so I'm going to be reshaping like so. So I have the side reshaped before I proceed to the cutting. So first of all, I'm going to be cutting out the neckline. So for the cutting of this neckline, please pay close attention. So you remember this is our dart at the upper part, but this is the neckline. Okay, so we already have the neckline cut out, and this point you can see here is already also part of the shoulder slant area, or the shoulder part of the dress. So this is the part I'm going to be taking out. That's why I'm marking this out. So this point here is also part of the shoulder area. So yeah, I'll fold it just like so that I can cut out the shoulder slant first of all. So I just have it held down, and then I cut out the shoulder and then the armhole area so that it makes it a whole lot easier. So I open it up again. So remember this point I said is part of the shoulder slant or the shoulder, and then I cut it out and I keep it aside, and then I proceed to cutting out the upper dart of the pattern. So I cut out this part as you can see me do. Please pay close attention to this part, it is very, very vital. So I cut this out and I have this kept aside, and then I continued with the cutting of this center part of the front. So I cut all the way down to the lower part of the pattern paper. So after I have this cut out, I'm going to be placing it back like so. This is the breast point line. So in stitching, you can see how the shape of the neckline is, which is not what we want. So that dented part, I'm going to be taking care of it. So, and you can also see that we have that part dented. So I get this dart that I will cut out and I put it by the side like so. I just place it back. After placing it, you can see that we have this point here. You can see this empty space that we have here. We are going to be taking care of that. So I shift this aside and I bring back this our dart that we already took off. I place it back and have it held down with the help of my tape like so, and then I place this back on it. You can see I place it on top of it and also have it held down. You can see that. So after that, I bring back this my center front and I place it as if I want to stitch, and I use my straight ruler to connect, to cover up that empty part that we had initially. Okay, so I just have it ruled out and then connected. You can see, so this point or this part I'm going to be marking is going to be taken out. Okay, so I'm going to be reshaping or recutting this upper part of the chest. So I just have it reshaped like so. So at this point, we have our perfect neckline. So if I bring back this center front and I place it, you can see that it's giving me a straight shape that we want for the neckline. Okay, so if I measure, I still have my 3.5 inches at the lower part. So I proceeded or continued with the cutting of the front pattern, so I cut the side like so. I'm going to be cutting this out, but that will be later. I'm going to be doing that with the back, so I take out the front and then I come back to the back. But before I proceed with the back, I'm going to be taking out some inches at the half waist length of the back so that it can eliminate every form of bulging at the zipper area. So I come in by 3/4 of an inch. You can also use half if you don't have a very deep back, and then from that point I'm connecting upwards and downwards, and after which I have that part cut out and I proceed to cutting every other part of the back. So for this our half waist length, I'm going to be folding it upward like so, and then I have it cut out. Like I said, this is going to be taken out, and then I cut out that our part I said I'm going to be using for the slash and spread. And after that, this is what we have for the patterns. We have only the center front that is longer than the two other ones, and then for that part, lower part that we have at the side for the gathered, I'm going to be marking out some points for the slash and spread. So I have all the points marked and I have them ruled down. So these are the points I'm going to be slashing and spreading for the gathered at the lower parts. Okay, so that's basically what I am doing at this point. I'm just marking them out so that I can slash all the points and then have them spread on a fabric, just in case you are a pattern drafter and you want everything drafted on pattern before you cut on your fabric. Okay, so I'm just going to be using this. I'm going to be spreading it like I said, and I'm going to be showing you and then placing it on a pattern and then I cut. But if you want to just use your free hand and get the width of your fabric and just go ahead straight up, then that is your choice as well, and that is very fine. To properly explain the slash and spread method, I'm going to be slashing this piece into the parts, the divisions that I have here. So I slash them open like so. Everything I just slash it open, and you can number them if you want, just to make sure that you don't have them mixed up. But because I'm not going to be using this for my gathered, I'm not going to be numbering it. Okay, so after slashing, like I said, you can number it and you keep it aside, and then you get your fabric. So you're going to be getting a very long fabric, and then you're going to be placing them on the fabric, maybe a distance of 2.5 inch apart. Okay, so you start placing them, making sure that the distance is about 2 or 2.5, depending on how full you want your gathers to be. So as you are placing, you can hold it down with the help of an office pin to exhaust the whole pattern you have already splashed. Okay, but I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be using my piece of fabric, have it gathered, and then place it on the dress. And to get started with the cutting of the fabric using the pattern, I place the pattern on the fabric and then have it held down with the help of pin. I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch seam allowance at the sides, and then at the down I'm going to be extending by 2 inches because I want to increase the length of the dress. So I'm cutting along all the seam allowances that I added for the sleeve. At the upper part I also added 1/2 inch, but that's just for this middle part. And then I get the side of the front as well. I added 1 inch to the side and then 1.5 inch at the side for the seam allowance. Okay, take note of that. And then I cut along every other part like so. So this is the armhole, and then at this side I added 1/2 inch as well, and then I cut along as you can see me do. At the shoulder slant I added nothing. Okay, that's it for the side of the front. And for the back I added 1.5 inch seam allowance, 1 at the down part, and then at the zipper side I didn't add anything. At the side here, like I said, I added 1.5 inch for the seam allowance, that's for the stitching of the bodice. And then at the neck area I added 1/2 inch to the depth, but for the width I did not add anything. Please take note of that. So at the end of the day, this is what we have. This is the back part, and then we have this for the side of the front, and then the center front. Okay, so for the center front I get back the pattern, I place it on it so that I can notch on the breast point exactly. So I just mark that, and I'm going to be notching that so that I will know where the breast point is on this particular one, because the curve is not really going to show me that when I'm stitching. So as you can see, I have where it is, and then I get this side. You can see it also matches that. Okay, so when I'm stitching I know where to hold together to give me the exact breast points of the dress. Okay, note that I'm also going to be cutting an interfacing. So after stitching and then stitching the dart and the interfacing together, this is what I have for the back and then for the front. So I'm going to be stitching the neck side of the front and I'll be back. So after stitching that, this is what I have. I'm going to be fixing the zipper, stitch the shoulder and the side of the front, and at the lower part I'm going to be attaching the gathers. Okay, so for the gathers, it's either you run a gathered stitch around the length of the lower dress, or you stitch directly on the dress. So after all that, this is what it looks like. I have the gather attached to it, but these points I've not closed up this part. Okay, so I just attach the gathers and I'll be closing up this part and then hem it down before I come over to this part. Okay, so this is the organza fabric I'm going to be using for the sleeveless area of the dress. So the length I have here is the total length of the organza, which is about 62 inches, and the width is 10 inches. So I fold into two to give me 5 inches, and I'm going to be stitching along. So after stitching, I turned it inside out, have it well ironed, and this is so ready for use. So to fix this, I just get the bodice of the dress, and then from the shoulder I mark downwards to about 9 to 10 inches, very close to the breast point length, and then I start the placement of the organza on the dress. You can use kissing pleat, you can use ordinary pleat, you can use gather, depending on whichever one that's going to give you the final outcome or the final look you want. And I'm going to be doing that all the way to the back, to about 9 inches to 10 inches down at the back area as well. And after doing that, guys, we are set and ready, guys. So this is what the final outcome looks like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This dress is absolutely very cheeky and very simple looking as well. So I hope you had a nice time on this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and see you in my very next one. Bye.